There we go. Hi, my little droogies. Oh, let's see. Who do we got? We got. Good Lord, we actually have 10 people watching. Wow, I'm a star. Welcome everybody to the June full moon madness live stream. I am Joe Block, the Greyhawk Grognard. I can't thank you enough for coming and partaking in this. I do have a question for the folks who are watching right now. I've got a new setup with my mic, and you can see my mic right here with my mic and my camera. And I just want to make sure, can you guys hear me okay and see me? Everything's good? Yes, David, you may indeed have my autograph. If you catch me at a con, I will be happy to do so. Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures. And welcome, Brett. Thank you for letting me know about the sound. And Cutter Jockey, good to see you once again, my friend. Right. So I make this promise to you. I am not going to be talking about Satine and everything else that's going on there because I don't really know anything about it, even though that's been the only thing that people can talk about lately. So yes, everybody, please do like the video. This that does really help. Oh, thank you, Mad Fergie. Yeah, I've got the It's the same camera, but it's in a different position now. I've got it on arms that can swivel around and stuff because I've got a table next to me, and my goal is I want to be able to aim the camera down at the table when I'm doing when I've got like a game or something laid out or miniatures or whatever. I can do that. So this, I've got the whole thing. I've got these two arms behind the monitors and stuff. So thank you for letting me know that. So for those of you who read the title card, I actually have a theme this month. A couple have been saying I should have themes rather than just rambling and doing and answering questions. So my theme this month is I want to talk about the Greyhawk Wars and the aftermath from the ashes. Because there's no getting around it that Greyhawk Wars and From the Ashes and that whole era of Greyhawk, the 585 era, common year, is somewhat divisive among Greyhawk fans. You can't. Hey, Jared, good to see you. You can't get around it. 585. It's it's not. It's not what the gold box was, and a lot of fans don't like it because they like what the gold box was, and I am one of them. I love the gold box. That is my go-to part of the setting. However, and when Wars and From the Ashes first came out, I kind of didn't like it because my thinking was, oh, this is just a cheap attempt to erase Gary's vision for the world of Greyhawk and move it into a different direction. And so I was part of that. And over the years, I've been able to kind of reassess what I think about From the Ashes and the Greyhawk Wars. And I've come to the conclusion that I don't hate it anymore. I like it as kind of an extension, and we'll go into that as we talk more about it. And Weird Fantastic Toy Adventures. Yes, I got to find a different. I'll just call you Weird. Let's put it. How about that? Yes, we will get to the whole Lord Robolar thing. So I want to start first with the Greyhawk Wars thing. Greyhawk Wars, for those who don't know, is a board game. It was it's not a great board game. It's not bad. Think kind of an advanced Risk with cards for magic items and stuff like that. So it's not bad. It's playable. I mean, it's not, I'm not going to stop playing Dune for it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And it's got a rule book, a bunch of cards and counters and all that stuff, as you would expect in a board game. But from a setting perspective, it's the adventurer's book. Okay, now you're Weird Bill. Uh, it's the um, it's the adventurer's book that really is beneficial from a setting perspective, because this really gives you a lot of detail about the course of what happened from 582-ish through 585 in the setting itself, when all the various changes to the setting happened. So in that respect, it's definitely worth getting. From a collector standpoint, you obviously want it, but from a setting perspective, it's worth getting the game, because this booklet has a lot of information that you don't really find anywhere else in the published stuff. And it's really cool, and especially if you're into the wargaming aspect, not the game, but doing war games. There is a lot of stuff in the game that you can apply in terms of special kinds of troops and numbers of troops and stuff like that, that really can add, even in a game that's set in 576, like the Gold Box. You can use some of the information in Greyhawk Wars to kind of enhance that and add a lot of flavor and such. Hey, Flint, good to see you. Let me just catch up here quickly. Yes, Greyhawk Wars. Yes, Scott. Yes, Greyhawk Wars is a board game that it's, and like I say, it's not bad. It's not great. It's playable. Yes, Scott. Yes, exactly. And Sebastian. Yes. So well, that's the art is the second edition art, so you're not really going to see you're not really going to see pig-faced orcs, because it's the 2E era, and they kind of got rid of that with the first edition stuff. Even as far back as the Slave Lord series, they stopped making orcs with pig heads, which I hate. But and the how to put this, what follows, of course, is From the Ashes. And From the Ashes is basically the replacement for the Gold Box, in terms of it gives you a full book about every country in the setting. It goes over through the history. It repeats a lot of the stuff that's in the Gold Box in terms of describing, this is what the Backloonish people are like, and this is how Iridians dress, and languages and stuff like that. It goes through a lot of that. Some of the material for the individual countries is repeated in the atlas of the Floness that they have in there, and it. Although they recycled the Darlene maps mostly, it does have this helpful thing on the inside cover that gives the new borders, right? So you can find out just how far Ayuz has spread and so forth. There's a lot of changes, obviously. With Jared is as Jared alludes to in the comments. There are a lot of changes to the setting, and while I don't approve of all of the changes, like you need my approval, TSR/Wizards to make changes to something that you own. I understand them, and somebody up in the comments, David Leonard alluded to, is that we already saw these sorts of changes starting in Dragon Magazine when Gary Gygax and Rob had those Floness articles, the state of the world of Greyhawk, where they would describe, this is what's going on in this part of the Floness, and this is, these armies happened, and there was a battle here, and all that. We get to see the beginnings of all this maneuvering, and the Great Kingdom is fighting against the Iron League, and on and on and on. There's a lot of that is really started, and they advance the timeline, because the events that are described in those magazine articles are in 577 and 578. So the concept of advancing the timeline, which a lot of people really seem to loathe, began with Gygax. He was advancing the timeline before good Lord, Carl Sargent. I apologize. Before Carl Sargent got to Greyhawk at all. Oh, and for those of you who are admiring my nifty threads, this shirt is from the 1970 film Colossus: The Forbidden Project, which is a terrific movie, and I highly recommend it. The books are also really good. There's a whole trilogy by D.F. Jones, but it's a wonderful Cold War techno thriller. About a computer that takes over the nuclear defense of the country and goes way beyond it. So anyway, I noticed myself in the screen. It's like, oh, I didn't mention my shirt. And now I continue. But there are a ton of changes to the setting, and I want to go through some of them in the context and kind of give a few thoughts on them. First and foremost, we have Ayuz, right? Ayuz, the old, the demigod, half demon Cambion. He's always been a major player in the world of Greyhawk, and in the Greyhawk Wars and From the Ashes, he has basically conquered the entire northern part of the Flanness, and most of the lands north of the Near Dive are conquered by him. The Shield lands, the Bandit Kingdoms, the Duchy of Ten, Stonehold, Stonefist, all those things. The nomads are pretty much, except for the Rovers of the Barrens, are pretty much still their own peoples, but everything kind of east of the Atl Mountains to 10, and then everything from the cold marshes down to the Near Dive are pretty much ruled by Ayuz. And I understand it. And in fact, you see some of the maneuvering. The timeline doesn't quite work out perfectly, but you see the idea that Ayuz wants to conquer the Horn Society in the book Saga of Old City by Gary Gygax. There's a whole section of it that's set in the city-state of Stoink, where there's this whole plot about, Ayuz is hiring mercenaries, and they want to take, they want to fight against the hierarchs, and they're pitting the hierarchs against the bandits, and it's a whole thing. But it's because Ayuz wants to conquer the Horn Society because they kind of took half of his kingdom while he was trapped beneath the ruins of Castle Greyhawk. So that all is set up in Gygax's stuff. There's a lot of people don't realize just how much of From the Ashes and Greyhawk Wars was set up from Gygaxian stuff. It really does flow well if you read it all in sequence. And the only thing I would object to, obviously, 5 shall be one, and the other module that was set up in the with the barbarians, they're not good modules. They're kind of railroady. They're obviously setting up the stuff that's going to come, and there's no real, they're not good, but they are necessary. And even if your PCs don't do them, they're gonna, those events will happen anyway, just to trigger what goes on. But it's weird that they focused so much on those two modules with the barbarians, because in the timeline as it goes out, the whole barbarian angle of the conquest of the North kind of goes away pretty quickly, because Ayuz wants the barbarians to attack Radek, and they say, no, we're allies with Radek, and then they kind of blow him off and figure out that Vatun, the great god of the North, is actually Ayuz in disguise. And let me digress into Vatun for a second. It's very cool that Vatun is a new deity that was invented as a Sul deity specifically for the barbarians. But it's really cool that the name Vatun is phonetically so similar to Odin, especially since you have it as a excuse me, as the great god of the north. He has the role, that Odinic role, and later on they kind of because in Earth, in our Earth, Odin is also called Odin, Wotan. There's a lot of different names that are all cognates to each other, and Vatun would fit in with that. You got Wotan, Vatun, Odin. They all work the same. So I like the fact that they kind of made that connection in there phonetically. I'm sorry, I've been digressing so much. I've lost track of the comments here. And apparently David Shepard writes, apparently Chris Promise wanted to set his miniatures game in Greyhawk Wars, but they said no because they wanted Living Greyhawk to have the Flyness. Yeah, well, yeah. I had actually never heard that. It makes sense that they would do that because Living Greyhawk at the time was kind of, that was a big thing for them. And David Leonard, yes, the 2 modules are indeed, most modules are good for lore. Even Puppets has some interesting little bits of lore. So you can. And David Leonard, yes, it is a combination of allergies, and about 6 weeks ago I had COVID, so I'm still, I'm over the disease, but I've still got a lot of congestion, in there. So we have we got the thing with Ayus, which is great, and then we also have a plot with the Great Kingdom, and the Great Kingdom has traditionally been at war with its neighbors Almor and Nyrond to the west. And also with the Iron League to the south. So they play into that, and they do a lot of really great stuff. I love the idea of the Animus as an undead servitor of Ivid the Fifth, and then he becomes one himself. And I really like that idea. It's almost Ravenloft-esque when they start describing what Rauxes is like under this undead regime of Ivid. It's really cool to read, and I really get that vibe of Ravenloft from it. And if I was ever to run something in that part of the Flyness at that time, I would absolutely be bringing in all my stuff out of my Ravenloft books. All the monsters, all that good stuff would be showing up there as kind of a thing. And eventually, and I'm surprised they didn't think of this, that Ivid and his part of the Flyness could be actually taken in and made a dread domain itself. That literally just occurred to me while I'm talking about it. So yay. Is my audio breaking up? Because like I said, I'm on a new setup here. Is it me or is Mad Fergie? Hey, Dr. Urius, good to see you. Is my audio okay? I just want to make sure if it's me, I can fiddle with some knobs and such, but somebody let me know if my audio is breaking up as is described by Mad Fergie. So we've got the Great Kingdom stuff, and they go and they attack Nyrond and Almor. They steamroller Almor. They attack Nyrond. They're defeated at Inspa, and they also go into the Iron League, and they just waste thousands and thousands of lives, and eventually the pressure's too much. North Kingdom rebels, and then North Province, I should say, rebels, and then South Province breaks away, and then you're left with this kind of fractured Great Kingdom of Arity. I have dome buffering going on. Oh, some buffering going on. Okay. I'm like, dome buffering? What the hell is dome buffering? Well, I apologize in advance if that's actually happening on my end. I don't know what's going on. But as long as we're okay, as long as I'm you're reading me. We're good. But then you also have the Scarlet Brotherhood, and they've been kind of lurking around in the shadows, and all of a sudden they've got huge, vast armies, and they conquer ID and Onwall and the Sea Princes, and they've got all these armies of slaves from the Ulman peoples. And they assassinate they're these unstoppable assassins, and all kinds of stuff like that is going on. And then you also have Joff and Sterich are overrun by giants who could be working for Lolth, or they could be working for Zuckmoy. We don't know. And you also have Bissell is overrun and by Ket at the instigation of Ayuz, sort of, kind of, and so you've got that going on, and that brings me to my chief problem with the Greyhawk Wars specifically. If they had made these changes to the setting happen more gradually, I would be a lot happier with it, rather than it being this enormous continent-wide, oh my God, everything's happening at once, and everybody, all the evil people choose to attack at once just because, with no coordination or anything like that. I would have felt a lot better about it. And for example, if Ayuz had done his thing while, and then he had started to consolidate his stuff, and then the Great Kingdom stuff happened, and then we saw Ket happen because Ayuz was trying to put pressure on Voluna. If rather than it being World War II, if it had just been a series of conflicts that are happening at different points in the timeline, I would have been a lot happier with it. But as it is, and then they have this big peace conference in the city of Greyhawk, the Peace of Greyhawk, to end the Greyhawk Wars. That's bad. That's lazy. But they could have gotten the same effect. They could have had, the changes that they wanted to make to the setting. I honestly don't think they should have or needed to have the giants invade Sterich and Joff. I think that was completely unnecessary, and for some reason, it's just part of their obsession with the giants and Drow modules that they just can't let go of and keep having to reskin every couple of years. But yeah, Dr. Uris, exactly, the Versailles Treaty. Why do you need this one big thing? If it had just been a couple of unrelated, isolated things that happen in sequence, it would have felt more natural, I think. I mean, it could have some overlap on some things, but then to collect it all into the Greyhawk Wars, that to me just doesn't gel. And looking at it in the long term, other than as I say, the giants coming and taking out Sterich and Joff, I don't particularly mind the changes to the setting. I think they're they feel more organic. We know Ayuz wants to take out the Horn Society. We know Ayuz is plotting to take over the bandits. We know Ayuz wants to build an empire, so that makes sense that he would do that. I would probably have it be a slower process, but okay, you gotta that's a quibble. And the Great Kingdom, that makes perfect sense, but again, I wouldn't package it together as a single item. Is there so I'm gonna take a second here, go through here. Jared, the problem with the Scarlet Brotherhood was that I couldn't justify their having a party with demi-humans or non-Sul into its borders without tossing them in shade. Well, yeah, I mean, they did kind of write themselves into a corner with the Scarlet Brotherhood in terms of its xenophobia. You kind of get the same idea with Lastry, the Hopping Prophet, who was one of my favorite bad guys. And any demi-humans will instantly be killed. It kind of limits your options when you're using them as a villain. Flint Fireforge. Is there a Greyhawk map somewhere that is marked with all the Greyhawk adventure modules that have taken place? If you go to Cannon Fire, the big main Greyhawk website, you will find there they have a map that identifies all the different module locations, Greyhawk Wars and otherwise. Flint just Google for Cannon Fire, CANONFIRE, because it's all about Greyhawk Cannon, which is according to my recollection, I actually was the first person to use the word canon in the context of Greyhawk. This was way, 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 way back on the old AOL days when there was a big Greyhawk forum. I might be wrong, but I want to say I was the first person to actually use canon in Greyhawk context in the same way that Star Trek fans use canon, because I'm also a huge Star Trek fan. So in the back of my mind, I want to say I did that. But anyway, who knows? I might be wrong. And if I am, I'm sure Night Screed will come along and tell me so. That inside baseball joke from the old AOL Greyhawk days. Satori, hey, how you doing? Good to see you from France, or France, as they say across there. So in terms of the differences that you see post-wars. And I've talked about this before, but it's worth repeating, especially, we have a theme. It's worth talking about that in the original Gold Box, you have this situation where evil is present and kind of on the rise, but you also have very powerful good states and good organizations, and you get this feeling that everything is kind of kept in balance. And that is very much in keeping with Gygax's concepts that you see in his Gord the Rogue novels, where there are actual organizations that are dedicated to making sure that neither good nor evil becomes ascendant. And you get the impression, kind of, it's probably reading into it, having read the later stuff from Gygax, but you get the impression that organizations like the Druidic Hierophants and the Order of the Rosy Cross and Gygax's version of the Veil of the Mage of the Veil and so on, they're actively making sure that nobody really becomes ascendant. And you kind of, you get that impression that everything's in kind of it's in a state of tension, and things could go either way, but most likely you're going to have little changes here and there. Good might succeed here, and then evil will succeed here, but everything's going to stay status quo. Oh, I know. Yes, it's true. There she goes. Yes, Louisiana says hello. Oh, great. Now I got to redo the camera. Jesus. Cat. All right. There we go. So you've got with the Gold Box, where you've got this kind of strategic tension between good and evil. And then in From the Ashes, evil is obviously very ascendant. You've got demons and devils openly walking around in places like Ayuz and the Great Kingdom. You've got entire good nations wiped off the map, like Almor and Ten and Joff and Sterich and so forth. You've got evil realms taking their place or taking them over. So it's obviously supposed to be, good is on the ropes. There are some bastions of hope out there, but on the whole, you're pretty much, things are looking bleak, and that's the kind of setting that they wanted to turn Greyhawk into, and they did, and it works very well as that. If that's what you're looking for, then it's a really good setting. Where things are looking grim, but we can probably pull it out. And tonally, you get that very distinct change from neutrality and balance are keeping things in check to, oh my God, evil is about to take over. What can we do something about this? Yeah, she already got fed. Not only her dinner, but also Eclipse's dinner. David, I don't think that Mordenkainen ever plotted against Furyandi because I don't think he ever needed to. But if there was ever a time when Furyandi became overly ascendant, I do think that Mordenkainen would have done things behind the scenes to kind of knock him down a peg. You get that impression of actively interventionist neutrality and balance in the especially in the Gord the Rogue novels. And I could very much see Mordenkainen, as described there, doing stuff like that just to keep things from going just to keep the scales from tipping one way or the other. Hey, AWOL Trooper, good to see you. It's the single. Jared, what are you saying? I'm trying to count structural racism. What are you? Oh, thank you, Joe. This is a perfect description of why I love 576. But then you move ahead, and this is kind of out of scope for what I want to talk about tonight. But when you move ahead to 591, they kind of move the pendulum back so that evil is no longer ascendant. They just, they have the Crook of Rao as a MacGuffin to explain why demons and devils and daemons are no longer walking around openly on the surface of the Flanaess. So they kind of reset everything when you get back to the 591 era. And it's back to, obviously things have changed in the last 15 years, but it's not completely, evil ascendant. You're back to more neutrality. Everybody's kind of taking a breather. The good nations are better off. They've had time to prepare and rest and build up the resources again. So you get the impression that it's a much more hopeful setting in 591, which is where you have the adventure begins. And it's you get that impression that they've deliberately moved the pendulum back to closer to what it was in the gold box. So unfortunately, to get from 576 to 591, you got to go through 585. That's just the way the time works. So, yeah, Jared, I completely, I completely agree about the use of the Brotherhood. I would have been much happier if they had kept the Brotherhood very sub rosa, very subtle, but behind the scenes. In fact, if they absolutely had to have everything have an open overarching, it all had to happen at the same time because there was this big plot, then they could have made mention of the fact that the Scarlet Brotherhood was pulling Ayuza's strings and those of Ivid in the Great Kingdom. They could have done all that and made them the reason that everything kind of happened all at once. And then all of a sudden, how did that happen? All of a sudden, where did all these Scarlet Brotherhood boosters come from in positions of power? But they kind of, again, it was a little lazy to just say, all of a sudden they have these slave armies that took over entire countries. I agree with you, Jared. I think, hey, quick save. I really think that that if they had been kept as a more subtle force, they would have been a better enemy. But again, I understand why they didn't go that route, but my personal choice would have been different. So, well, that's just it, Mad Fergie. If you just start in 591, then obviously, all you've got is history, which is really nice. The problem being that, a lot of us really like the gold box era, the 576 era. And, if you're like me, I keep resetting my campaign to 576, 577, because that's what I enjoy most. So, as things go on, this brings up a wonderful point. Living Greyhawk. Eventually, I'm going to do a video about Living Greyhawk and my true feelings about it. I'm kind of, I don't know, because I know so many people like it, and I just don't. But someday I will actually do a video on why and go into it in detail. Living Greyhawk had all kinds of arcs about all kinds of things, and that's kind of one of the problems with it. Earth Journal 33, I probably have read it, Jared, but I don't remember it. I will go and seek it out again. Is there a good source of Living Greyhawk? No. Here, Dr. Urias, the simple answer is no. There is no single comprehensive great source for the old adventures. The copyrights on them are so entangled in all kinds of different things. There's no way that anybody could legally put them up together. Before Yahoo Groups shut down, it was there. You could go to the Yahoo Groups for all the different Living Greyhawk regions, and in the file sections they would have tons of stuff, but of course Yahoo Groups is gone now. So I don't know if anybody's actually made a comp. I know my collection is got enormous gaps, but I don't know if anybody's made a systematic thing. One thing you can find, I believe it's on Drive-Thru RPG, might be on Amazon as well. Somebody did a history of the Bandit Kingdoms, which was basically not the actual adventures, but he did a narrative of all the things, all the events that happened in the Bandit Kingdoms during Living Greyhawk. It was really cool. In fact, behold. This is it, the Bandit Kingdom Summary by Casey Brown. It's either on Amazon or Drive-Thru. They took it down at one point because they thought it was infringing copyrights, but it's not, because it's all his. It's just him remembering what all the stuff was about, and it gives summaries of the different adventures that were in there, and it gives a narrative flow to the whole thing. It's really cool. If somebody could make one of these for every one of the Living Greyhawk regions, it would be really useful. But he was specifically involved in the Bandit Kingdom, so that's what he wrote. But definitely seek that out if you're interested more in that. All right, let's catch up here on the things. Yes, the Living Greyhawk, yes, Satori. It's coming, Satori, eventually. I was going to do it for when I got 2,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel, but I'm like really close to that now, so I'm not really sure I could do it. I could turn it around that quick. Alrighty, so Scarlet Brotherhood, Cutterjockey. Scarlet Brotherhood should have been used more of as subversive psychology. Exactly. Yes, exactly. Make them subtle, make them behind the scenes, keep them behind the scenes. Every once in a while, a Scarlet Brotherhood commander or two would be in charge of a castle or something, like we saw in Castle Strand Gate or whatever it was in Artifact of Evil. But so forth and so on. But yeah, keep them subtle. That's what I would have loved to see. Unfortunately, it was not to be. So now one of the things about From the Ashes that I want to point out is that not only does it have the Atlas of the Flyness, it's also got this campaign book. And this, more than anything, really signaled the idea that if you're going to have a campaign in the world of Greyhawk, you're going to have it in the city of Greyhawk or right around it, because the idea is this gives a very detailed breakdown of all of the domain of Greyhawk, as they call it here, because they take over Hardby and which sucks because I love Hardby. I think Hardby is a terrific foil for the city of Greyhawk, in the same way that Divers is a terrific foil for the city of Greyhawk in a completely different way. But this really was the point at which they started to say, well, we're not really going to pay much attention outside. They did the books about Ayuz. They had to, and they did the book about about Furiondi. Furiondi and Nyrond again, because they had to give some meat to it so you could do some things. But this is really where they started. The official stuff really started skewing a bit towards City of Greyhawk, because they'd already published the box set and so forth. Obviously they also had the Great Kingdom book, but notably that Great Kingdom book by Rob Kuntz never got published. They had to release it later on as a free PDF download, because they were already kind of shunting Greyhawk aside at that point. And they didn't want to spend the resources. Plus, they had all kinds of different problems. Hey, John Edgar, good to see you. We are talking about Greyhawk Wars. Indeed. But the fringe areas, what are we talking about? The fringe areas, Ratic, Filronian Peninsula, Stonefist. I mean, that's obviously, that's the Norse region. If you're going to, that's the Viking-esque region. And that's always going to be popular and such. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, somebody is doing a 2E style book for Fireland, which is the island that's like kind of a Filronian Peninsula colony, way off to the east over the Solnor Ocean. And I want to say it's, oh right, I'm gonna, I know he's talked about it, but I'm not gonna rat him out. I just, all of a sudden it occurred to me, maybe I'm not supposed to mention that. So I apologize in advance if I did, but I won't rat him out. But yeah, there's a lot of obviously the Viking-esque stuff up there. I personally would love to do something in the Flinty Hills, because I love the idea of the Count of Blemu, who we saw in Saga of Old City, trying to establish his own country up there between Nyrond and the Bone March. I love that idea, and I would love to explore a campaign where that's happening, where he's doing the power politics between all the different factions. He's trying to balance. He's a noble of the king of Nyrond, in fealty to the king of Nyrond, but he's also got these ambitions to have his own kingdom in the Blemu Hill. In the Flinty Hills, there's all kinds of. You got the humanoids, the gnomes, and the dwarves, and you got the humanoids from the Bone March coming in. I think it would make a really fantastic campaign if you didn't want to have, if you didn't mind having, a lot of role playing and politicking, and that's the kind of game I love. I love the politics. I love the the schemes and who's allied with who. That to me is a terrific game. So that's the kind of game I'd want to play. All righty, let's see here now. Catching up again. Satori, yes, the cover art the cover art on the campaign book is amazing. This was done by Jeff Easley, of course. This is a Jeff Easley piece. And you're right. This could very easily adorn a any scholarly book on medieval Europe. It's really awesome. All right, let's keep going. Excuse me. I require a libation. All right, so Weird Mike says, and I'm sorry, you're just that in my mind right now. What are my thoughts on using the second edition green books with Greyhawk? I was the guy this again harkens back to the old AOL days. I was the guy who had kits for every character class for every country in the Flyness. So, literally, I posted these all to the AOL boards back in the day. So there was a yeomanry ranger kit, and there was a Grand March thief kit, and all that. I went hog wild. So I was a big fan of the of all those second edition splat books back in the day. I guess for Greyhawk, it would depend on which green books you're talking about, because I could easily see like the Rome book with the Gladiator class or kit, I could see that coming out of someplace on the Wild Coast or someplace in the Great Kingdom or so forth. Oh, and I'm going to rewind just a bit. I also forgot to say that the Pomarge, you've got Turash Mac, who takes over half of the Principality of Europe, Ulick, half of the Wild Coast, and a portion of the Lortmill Mountains. So yet again, we've got something else just happens to happen at the same time. Anyway, sorry, I just glanced down at a map. Yeah. As far as the other ones go, some of them won't really be applicable because they have gunpowder. I forget what was there was one about the 100 Years' War or something that had flintlocks on it. The Vikings one would obviously, that would fit in great in the Filronian Peninsula, as we were talking about before. The Greek one, I would probably hold off until I was running something in Western Ulrich, because there's this whole Greek section out there, or at least what should be Greek out there in the southeastern part of Ulrich. I forget the name of it. It was in the Dragon Annual 1 map. So yeah, there's definitely ways to apply those 2E green books to this. I love the blue books too. One of my favorite D&D books ever is Monstrous Mythology. It has all the gods of all the different monstrous races and so forth. It's fantastic. So a lot of people complain about there was so much bloat and things weren't exactly play tested as well as they might be. Some of those kits in some of those brown books, yeah, they really did break things. I seem to recall the Spellsinger, whatever it was one of those, but a Blade Singer or something, I don't remember. But there's a lot of good stuff in there that really could apply directly to the world of Greyhawk. Jared, yes, Jared did. Great minds, exactly. John Edgar likes the intrigues, excellent. And Jared, the politics, yes, absolutely. To me, if you're not going to do a straight dungeon crawl, then I want factions and I want people that I can interact with, and even in a dungeon crawl, if I'm doing a mega dungeon like Castle of the Mad Archmage, plug, then there are factions in there, and you're supposed to play one against the other and so forth. In D3, you're supposed to go in there and infiltrate one of the Drow houses and use them and play them against each other and so forth. So I'm all in favor of that style of play. Bill, yeah, sorry, weird Bill, Mike, whatever, weird Fantastic Toy Adventures. I am like the worst with names. I apologize. I apologize in advance and after the fact. Nordic Maelstrom, hello. I don't think I've said say hi to you yet. Don't buy the books or broken narrative. It's up to the game masters to determine what's too powerful. Well, it's not the books that are broken, but there are individual kits in those books that are definitely overpowered. I don't think I don't think there's I think most people would agree on that point, that there are some of those kits that they were just trying to get stuff out the door, and some of them they did not play test them sufficiently. John Edgar relates yes. The Sea Barons with Greece. I never thought of that, actually, the Sea Barons as being Greece. I could see that, though. I could see how that could work. And Nordic Maelstrom, exactly. There are that's how you handle it. Is you say, we're not going to. Yes, you can use the complete fighter book, but no, we're not going to allow that particular kit in the game. It's that easy. It really is. Satori, Spelljammer. I did a video on Spelljammer not too long ago and how I think it fits in. My view on Spelljammer is thus. I think Spelljammer is fine as an addition to other settings. I've done Spelljammer in Greyhawk where, there's a Spelljammer ship in port or whatever, or they find something that has come out of the sky, and then they go to the grinder or something as an adventure, or they go to Luna, or something like that. so as an add-on to Greyhawk or to any other setting, honestly, I think that's where Spelljammer really comes in well. I don't like Spelljammer as a setting unto itself. I've never really heard of anybody who's been able to sustain a long-term Spelljammer campaign. It's just, what they should have done when they brought out Spelljammer. I know they had The Rock, I think it was called. They had the central asteroidy thing, but it wasn't much of a setting in the same sense that Planescape had what's that city called? That thing with the Lady of Pain, City of Sigil. Where it was a big, massive thing that you could actually base a campaign in and then go out. The Spelljammer should have had something like that to help DMs make a campaign around, and then they could go off and do other things. As it is, it's great if you want to move your... if all of a sudden you say, we're tired of the Forgotten Realms, we want to play in Dragonlance. Then you can have an adventure or three where the PCs use Spelljammers to move from realm space to Kryn space or whatever. So in that respect, I think it's very useful, and it can add spice, and it can add, it can change things up a little, and you're fighting new, there's new things and new magic and new monsters and stuff. So in that respect, that's how I think of Spelljammer as being best used, is as an addition to an existing campaign in some other world. Okay, going back to yonder comments. Was Rob Kuntz's character Robblear too powerful, or was he just a good player? Well, I don't want to speak for Rob. I only know what I've read. I think Rob was from what I've read, Rob was the definition of an excellent player in a Gygaxian sense. He was enormously cautious. The story I read was he went to the Tomb of Horrors with 100 orcs and kept sending them forward and letting them trigger all the traps and die and everything. And then eventually he made it to the end. So he's that kind of player that thinks that way. I don't think Robblear as a character was too powerful. I mean, compared to Mordenkainen or some of the others in the original campaign, no, I don't see it. Oh yeah, John Edgar. That's exactly what when Gary Gygax came back to doing articles in Dragon, that I think that's where I read it. It might have been that, or it might have been Orc Journal or something like that. But anyway, yeah, send a couple 100 orcs into the thing. I'm gonna have to take a second here. I'm gonna pause because my throat. That's better. I hope. Alrighty. So I think I've rambled on about Greyhawk Wars enough. Anybody else have any thoughts on Greyhawk Wars or From the Ashes? Because we're coming up on the 9 o'clock hour, and that's usually when I wrap these up. Excuse me while I wrap this up. So where'd the cat go? Oh, cat's in the corner. That is Louisiana. So as we wind down our hour, no. No, Satori, we should not burn the books. You should send them to me, and if you PM me, I shall send you my address, and I will be happy to take any books or Grenadier, Ralpartha, Heritage miniatures that you might have lying around that are taking up space. My home for old miniatures is well in hand, and the books will go to good use. Sure, John, sure. Oh, where would you put the Isle of Dread? If I don't have it handy, unfortunately, bear with me one second. I have a visual answer to your query. I just have to find it. Bear with me 1 second as I flip through a book or two. Is this the one? This is not the one. Oh, not the one. Oh, no, not the one. Not the one. Oh, nobody listens to poor Zathras. Nobody listens to poor Zathras. Oh, man, where am I going? Why am I not finding it in here? Oh, come on, you. No, that's not the map I want. Come on, you doorknob. Ah, crap. This is I know, thrilling TV watching me flip through a book for a freaking map. Okay, so there's this map here, and to answer the question, yeah, Michael Strong, exactly, Zathras. Oh, nobody listens to poor Zathras. Rational Ginger, good to see you. So I always thought, based on the map alone, that there's this island like here that would really work for the Isle of Dread. I don't know why, but there's something about the silhouette of the island that makes me think that would fit well. No, it was all they originally when it came out, the Isle of Dread wasn't set in any particular setting. It was one of those generic things, and it quickly got ported into it quickly got ported into the known world. My wife and I are actually rewatching Babylon 5 right now, and we're deep into the Shadow War. Yeah, so that's where the Zathras thing came from. Oh, no, nobody listens to poor Zathras. Zathras have hard life, probably have hard death, but at least there is symmetry. So, and yeah, I'm a big Babylon 5 fan. So one of these days I should do a thing about good old TV shows. Right now I'm rewatching UFO, the Jerry Anderson TV show from I guess 1972 or something. I'm watching that on the Roku channel, and I'm also rewatching the original Outer Limits. And I'm finding that there are a ton of Outer Limits episodes that I've never seen before, which is great. And my wife and I are also rewatching the original 2 miniseries, and then we're gonna skip over to the we're gonna brave the horrors that are the TV show. So, was it did Paizo actually put the Isle of Dread into there? I thought that was like there was, or maybe I'm thinking of Council of Worms or something, where they put the city of Cauldron onto Jalea Bay where it doesn't belong. To be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on that particular one with the Savage Tides and stuff like that. Yeah, when they were coming out with the adventure paths and stuff, I wasn't as keenly keeping up on the Greyhawk stuff as I should have been, especially since I know the publisher. So let's see now. All right, so we are past the 9 o'clock hour. Did I ever stream one of my D&D games? I tried. That was actually something that I had set up for my Patreon, where we did a game that was going to be, we recorded it, put it on. I find I hate playing online. I mean, I actively loathe playing through a computer. I want to play at a table with people. Now, if I could get a table with people and have a camera on it, that might be a completely different story. But playing online, it was agony for me, and I don't know why. I I did not care for the experience, which is why I don't, I don't play online or anything like that myself. Um, um, well, so yeah, that's just it. Just have a group and set the camera on it. The, that is a possibility. Let's I will leave it at that. I won't make promises, but but yeah, I forget what we used. It was last year during COVID, and I forget what exact system we used. It was not Roll20. It was not the big, or whatever the big one is. Yeah, it was not Roll20. It was something else. And it worked fine. Um, Technically, it's just me. It's entirely me. I just couldn't get into it without people actually physically there. One of the problems is when I do game, we game at local game stores. And so that's a little problematic. Setting up a camera and stuff in a public space, we'd have to rejigger logistics and stuff. So I will keep it in the back of my mind. So anyway, alrighty, last call for questions, because I need to go make some dinner. Alrighty, well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate everybody being here. Oh, and I'm Dave, Brett. I'm sure it does. I know everybody likes to play that way. I get it. I know I'm in the minority of a minority not liking it. I know that. It's not saying that other people are playing wrong or having wrong fun. It's just for me. It's not for me. Dinner for me is chicken cacciatore, which I made a couple days ago, and now I'm going to reheat it. So anyway, thank you all so much for coming in. I had a blast tonight. I think having a theme like this really works, and I will endeavor to do the same thing next time. I will be heading off to, let's see, before our next live stream, I will be heading off to Historicon, which is in lovely Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's a historical minis convention. I will be there just as a player. So if anybody who watches this or who's here now is going to be at Historicon, let me know and we will hook up and dinner or game or something. Otherwise, and yeah, please do hit the like button on this stream. That really does help. And I hope I will see you all next month, and have a terrific day. Bye, everybody.